In the public imagination, the life of King Charles III has often been framed through ceremony, tradition, and the heavy symbolism of monarchy, yet in this dramatized and reflective narrative style, the idea of tragedy is not about a single dramatic event but about the slow, quiet accumulation of pressure, expectation, and time itself, shaping a man who has spent decades under one of the most intense public spotlights in modern history, where every gesture is interpreted, every silence analyzed, and every transition of age becomes part of a national conversation. And as he reaches his late 70s, this imagined portrayal focuses not on scandal or sudden misfortune but on the emotional weight of endurance, the kind that builds invisibly while the outside world continues to demand continuity, stability, and symbolic strength. In this narrative lens, his life becomes a study in permanence and constraint, where personal desires are constantly negotiated against institutional duty, and where the concept of self is repeatedly filtered through the expectations of a role that never truly pauses, not even in private moments, because even privacy is shaped by awareness of representation, legacy, and historical record, and so the tragedy being described here is the human experience of living as a figure who is never fully off stage, even when the cameras are gone. Over time, this imagined emotional burden deepens through the layering of responsibility, first as heir, apparent for decades, then as monarch tasked with embodying continuity in a rapidly changing world, and finally as an aging public figure whose every appearance carries symbolic meaning far beyond personal intention, creating a life where identity is continuously stretched between the individual and the institution, and where the boundary between Charles the person and the crown he represents becomes increasingly abstract. In this reflective storytelling approach, moments of public duty are contrasted with the unseen stillness of private hours, where decisions about speeches, travel, diplomacy, and tradition are made not just as administrative tasks but as elements of historical consequence, and where even ordinary human experiences such as aging, fatigue, or reflection are filtered through the expectation of composure. Supporters in this narrative may see resilience, a steady continuation of centuries-old tradition, while critics may perceive constraint and emotional suppression. But both perspectives converge on the idea that such a role does not allow for a fully ordinary life, and that is where the emotional tone of Beyond Heartbreaking is interpreted, not as a specific incident, but as the imagined cost of a lifetime spent balancing personal identity with inherited responsibility. Within this framework, public memory tends to compress decades into highlights, crowns, ceremonies, speeches, and global appearances, while the internal reality is far more gradual and complex, filled with transitions that are rarely visible, including shifts in family dynamics, evolving public expectations, and the relentless passage of time that does not pause for any title or institution. And as age advances, the contrast between symbolic permanence and human fragility becomes more pronounced, creating a narrative tension that defines this stage of life. Ultimately, this storytelling perspective does not claim revelation or expose hidden facts, but instead uses the idea of tragedy as a lens to explore how extraordinary public roles can quietly shape ordinary human emotions, suggesting that the most profound struggles are often not dramatic collapses but the sustained endurance of visibility, responsibility, and expectation over lifetime, where the weight of being constantly observed becomes its own kind of silence, and where legacy is built not only through what is achieved, but also through what is carried without interruption.